Yeah, that's fine. Thanks, Anne.
Thank you. Now record started.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to our Cabinet meeting on the 8th of September 2021. Can I just say that I'm really pleased to welcome you back, and I hope that that you've had a well-earned rest, as it's been a month since we've had an opportunity to meet formally. So to start then with the first item on our agenda, apologies for absence. Anne, do we have any apologies?
Yes, Chair, Councillor Hughes and Truman, thank you.
Thank you very much for that. We move to item 2, declarations of interest. Are there any declarations of interest? No? Okay, thank you very much. Item number 3 then are the minutes of our previous meeting. That was the 7th of July 2021, and these are on pages 3 to 18 of the packs that you have, colleagues. Are members content to confirm these as a true record of our meeting?
Confirmed, Leader, yeah.
Second.
Thank you. Thank you. We move swiftly on then to item number 4 on our agenda today, which is the Revenue Budget Monitor July 2021. And this is on pages 19 to 42 of the packs that you have. Now, colleagues, this is the first revenue monitor that has been presented to the Cabinet this financial year, and it explains the current forecast position of the authority as at July 2021. Against a net budget of 316 million, the July revenue position currently forecasts an underspend of 5.3 million, representing a 1.6% variance against budget. This position is inclusive of the continued financial impact of the COVID-19 pandemic and assumes full reimbursement of additional expenditure and lost income for the remainder of the year. This follows confirmation from Welsh Government that the hardship fund will remain available until March 2022. This is a welcomed addition to this year's forecast position, as although the rollout of the vaccination programme has enabled a lifting of restrictions and reopening of the economy, it is evident that the financial impact on the Council's budget continues to be felt during this financial year. As shown in the report and its appendices, the position can be explained in the following way. Overall, service spend is more or less on budget. Then the underspend comes from savings against the capital financing budget, the revenue contingency budget, which is currently not needed, and some other non-service budgets which are not currently committed. These together produce the 5 million underspend. Although budgets are balanced overall in service areas, some individual areas continue to overspend against specific activities. As in previous years, these overspends relate to demand-led activity areas such as social services, and therefore there is an inherent risk that they may change should demand levels change from the current forecasts. In addition to this, there does remain several uncertainties in terms of the longer-term impacts of the pandemic, such as the impact upon unemployment levels, as and when the support for employees who are furloughed begins to be withdrawn. This monitoring position does not make any assumptions in terms of that longer-term impact, and so will require to be closely monitored as the pandemic situation continues to evolve. The key areas contributing to the 5.3 million forecast position include increased demand across key social care areas, including children's out of area placement, independent fostering agencies and adult community care. These 3 areas alone contribute to an overspend of almost 350,000 to the overall service position. In addition to these continued risks, there are also issues that have emerged during the year and will continue to be closely monitored. These include, but are not restricted to, interagency adoption, children's emergency placements and the increased costs in respect of dealing with ASH dieback. The anticipated overspend in areas of emerging risk is expected to be more than £700,000 by the end of the financial year. There is an anticipated shortfall against the delivery of 2021-22 and prior year savings of over £600,000, which is largely due to delays in progressing the necessary actions, some of which are a result of the pandemic. Whilst the level of unachieved savings in relation to the current financial year is lower than in previous years, there remains a need to ensure that all savings are delivered in full as soon as possible, and officers continue to take action to ensure that these are delivered from the earliest opportunity. Underspending against non-service budgets explain the key elements of the forecast underspend, as already mentioned. Firstly, there is a forecast underspend of 2.7 million in relation to the capital financing project. As part of budget setting for 2021-22, the capital financing costs of the current capital programme, which ends in 22-23, were funded up front. This has resulted in a saving within the minimum revenue provision budget and the interest payable costs, as this budget is not yet required. This underspend was known and understood at the point where the budget was agreed in March this year. Furthermore, given that an underspend position is anticipated at this stage of the year, there is no requirement to utilise the Council's general reserve budget contingency of 1.3 million, therefore adding to the non-service underspend. The report highlights that overall schools are anticipating a net overspend of 2 million after allowing for reimbursement of eligible expenditure and lost income via the hardship fund. Although schools are expecting to overspend against budget, it should be noted that the schools carried forward significantly higher balances at the end of the 2020-21 financial year compared to previous years. And this higher level of balances is primarily the product of Welsh Government grants issued towards the end of the last financial year, which offset spend that schools had already budgeted for. As a result, schools carried forward higher than anticipated balances, which in most cases will be more than sufficient in offsetting the overspends being reported. In comparison to previous years, only 4 schools are projecting to hold deficit budgets, totaling 1.3 million, with 2 of those expecting to be smaller than the previous year. The current position on school balances represents a significant change from the concerns evident in previous financial years. Now that an overall surplus position projected to total 7.5 million is anticipated and appears set to continue for at least the next financial year, it is important that there remains a focus on school budgets to ensure that as much as possible a return to the previous position is avoided. This must be balanced with trying to avoid a situation whereby balances could be considered excessive and will therefore be a key consideration of setting future revenue budgets and reviewing the medium-term financial plan. So, colleagues, I present to you the Revenue Budget Monitor for July, and I now like to open this to any questions or comments. Would anybody like to comment on this particular item?
Excuse me, Leader, I haven't got a hands icon on my computer, but if I could, thank you. It's just on the ash dieback and the cost of that, but I think that the public can see the effect of what's happened on Cullion Road. These trees are very large and we do need specialist equipment to remove them. And that will continue as we move through the city, which has one of the highest levels of ash trees in Wales. And obviously we will continue to seek Welsh Government funding for this, but it's something that we have to deal with, but it can come at a great cost. Thank you. Thank
you for that, Deputy Leader. Councillor Cochrane, would you like to come in?
Yeah, thank you, Leader. You alluded to the overspend in social services, and I don't take that lightly at all, really, because obviously it's something very serious and we've got to work towards that. There's no question about that. But what I would like to mention, to be perfectly honest, is and maybe I'm straying into the capital programme a bit here, but what would that overspend in out of placement for children if we hadn't taken the bold step of having those 2 extra residential homes. Now, I think the figure is, and maybe Sally can correct me, some of these children are costing us £3,000 to £4,000 a week. Well, those 8 children coming back in from outside into our homes possibly be saving us 500,000+ a year. So you imagine what that overspend, it wouldn't be just 125,000, it could be up to £750,000, and better for the children, as you've alluded to on many occasions. So I just want to say we will work hard at that overspend. But I just want to mention that sometimes the capital that we're doing is trying to offset some of those overspends, which are clearly not acceptable. But it's very difficult when the courts decide a children's got to come into care. And just on the fostering, the independent fostering, you know quite well that we're doing a big push now on having in-house foster carers and recruiting a lot more. And what's pleasing, I just had the information today on the I don't know whether people have seen that large advertisement on just before we go into the Bringlass tunnels. We are on the 20th of September. Newport foster carers have got quite a large horde in there, and it's going to be there for 2 weeks promoting foster carers in Newport. So hopefully that would be something that we're moving forward. And the other thing then on that is the Dragons have taken us on board as well, and we got a 20-foot banner going up on the Dragons at Rodney Parade, and they're also offering hospitality to some of the foster carer parents as well. So we're really pushing the in-house foster carers, and hopefully at some stage that we'll certainly make big inroads into the independent sector. So hopefully some of these overspends will start reducing. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that, Councillor Cochrane, and I'm really pleased with the example that you've given us there, because that's an excellent example of how service transformation is not just leading to savings for us, but is also delivering better outcomes for the young people in our care. So that is an absolutely excellent and very powerful example of how we're seeking to address some of the issues that are created by demand-led service provision. So thank you for that. I appreciate that, and I'm delighted with the level of support that we've had from a number of partners across Newport in relation to these activities, and a huge thank you from us all really to the Dragons for supporting us in that way. So thank you, Councillor Cochrane, for that. Councillor Davis, would you like to come in?
Thank you very much, Leader. I want to focus on the education budget, and whilst yes, we have concerns that we had a anticipated net overspend of 2.48 million. What was unexpected was the additionality of the grants that came in at the last minute at the end of the financial year to our schools, which is incredibly welcome. They came from the hardship fund, and they've actually created and generated a surplus into our school budget, so we can anticipate that we will actually have a balanced budget at the end of the year. And I think if you look at point 3.6, it states the current position on school balances represents a significant change than concerns evident in previous years. As recently as 2021 financial year, there were concerns that aggregate school balances could reach a negative position, which would have wider financial implications across authority. However, now that we've got an overall surplus position of a projected 7.511 million at the year end, which has been achieved, it appears set to continue for at least next financial year. It's important. We actually know that we've got this surplus, but it's important to remain an intense focus on our schools budgets, especially not just where there's deficit, but where there's surplus. And that work has already been undertaken by our chief education officers. And I'm getting frequent reports back on exactly where we are. Schools are expected to consider carefully now exactly what they've got in surplus. They're expected to provide detail exactly what they intend to spend the next financial year, and what is key and actually fundamental what they're doing is they're expected to put in a long-term forecast in relation to their spend. So there's an intense focus now on school spend, and that should hopefully ensure that we maintain that long-term surplus. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you for that, Councillor Davis. And can I just say that it does highlight a really important position, and that's a reflection of the close working relationship with our schools and our governing bodies, and also, might I say, Councillor Davis, the contribution that you've made to that. So thank you very much for the leadership that you're showing in relation to that. We are moving that forward in a very positive way indeed. And I'd like to just pause and thank all of our volunteers, our school governors, who are really helping us to shape this. So thank you very much for that. Would anybody else like to comment? No? Okay, so colleagues, the paper asks us to note the overall budget forecast and the potential for an underspend position. It asks us to note the continued financial challenges being experienced by certain demand-led areas, note the risks identified throughout the report, and the head of finance comments in relation to this. Note the forecast movements in reserves and to note the overall improved position in relation to schools. So colleagues, are you content to with the recommendations of this report?
Happy with that, Leader? Yes.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yes.
That's great. Thank you very much for that. We'll move on then to item number 5 on our agenda today, which is the Capital Programme Monitoring and Additions, July 2021. And you can find this report in pages 43 to 62 of the packs that you've received. The report provides us with the capital monitoring position as at July 21. And colleagues, as you know, we've set an extensive capital programme that reflects 7 years of commitments. Table 1 shows in the report shows how this has changed over the financial year and shows the council's capital commitments and spend in the city now totals over £282 million over the life of the programme across all service areas. So we're being asked to approve, as usual, new capital projects to be added to the overall programme. Table 2 within the report details these new projects and how each of these are funded. Table 3 shows the forecast position as at July 21, which is the focus of this report. Now, the current position shows a small expected underspend of 159,000. And you can view this in Appendix C. The table also highlights that there has been reprofile undertaken to date of 30.2 million. Details of where this reprofiling has occurred is also contained within the report. However, this still leaves us with a capital programme of 70.4 million for 21-22, which is still very high. Further work on forecasting and reprofiling will need to continue to ensure that the capital programme reflects a realistic timescale for the projects to be delivered. And I would ask officers to continuously review their projects and update the project profile as these schemes progress. Now, in terms of monitoring spend, the report confirmed low spending of just under 11 million on a budget of 70.4 million. Now, this pattern was not uncommon. As usual, a lot of the cost is predicted in the last half of the year. However, it does bring with it the risk of slippage, but further work is outlined that will help in that respect. In saying this, progress is being made on a number of projects, in particular the Band B school programme, and details of this are noted in the report. The reported capital headroom is 7.6 million. And I have to say, colleagues, that the demand for capital expenditure in Newport exceeds the level of resource, and we do need to prioritise carefully as a council and really look very closely at where we spend the capital resource accordingly. I have also requested some work on the financial and delivery risks on the capital programme, resulting from a potential volatility in the market in relation to raw materials and labour costs and supply issues. And this is mainly as a result of COVID and Brexit. So we are aware that these are starting to have an issue and cause an issue and have an impact across the UK. And I've asked officers to assess this for our programme and report back in due course. Now, this work is ongoing and we will have an update for you when we have further information. So colleagues, as a Cabinet then, we're asked to note and approve the reprofiling, which has been undertaken so far this financial year of 30.2 million into future years, approve the new capital projects and amendments to the capital programme, and to note the current available capital resources. So at this point, I will open up for any questions or comments. Would anybody like to comment? Councillor Davis, would you like to come in?
Thank you, Leader. I just want to again comment on education, and I very much look forward to a future Cabinet report, which would be in relation to Baseleg and the expansion programme, very much needed at this point in time. One of our more popular schools, which is certainly oversubscribed at this moment. So it's with it'll be with great pleasure that we see that expansion programme being undertaken, and when we receive that Cabinet report at a future meeting, there'll be certainly more detail available. But certainly what I want to focus on is the outstanding work that's been undertaken to manage the difficulties that St Andrews are facing at the moment. There's been some sterling work in ensuring that those primary school children are now in one place, they're learning in one place, and they're getting the support of their peers and their teachers on that one site, and I'm really grateful for the work that's been undertaken, not just by our officers, but the staff, the head teacher, and of course the governing body. That's been absolutely superb, and we wait with anticipation, positive, hopeful anticipation, for funding from Welsh Government in relation to the work that we need to be undertaken to get those children back onto the primary site of St Andrews. Much to look forward to. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you very much for that, Councillor Davis. Would anybody else like to comment? Councillor Cochrane.
Yes, thank you, Leader. I might be a bit sad here, but last night I went through all these projects, and there was over 200 that have been sort of completed or committed for by the end of 2022. And when you think about it, a lot of this has helped a lot of our vulnerable to regenerate to the city. Obviously, Deb has just mentioned about the schools, and obviously there's the big ones, you know, about the leisure centre and all that. But when you think of all the little projects that we've done as well, I think it's so positive. It just shows what this administration have achieved since we've been taken in charge of the local authority.
Thank you for that, Councillor Cochrane, and I really appreciate you reminding us all, you know, of the investments that we've made over the full course of this administration, because it is quite powerful reading, isn't it, when you pause to go through it and you look at what we've achieved. It really is. So thank you very much for reminding us of that, and also highlighting a really important aspect of that is that the reason that we can do that is because we've got such a dedicated officer teams that really work hard to deliver for us and deliver on the commitments of the corporate plan. So thank you for that. Deputy Leader, would you like to come in?
Yes, thank you, Leader. It's very apparent from Councillor Davis, and a follow on from that, I was actually at the Connect Centre this morning to view the demountables that have been placed there for Year 6 children, and what a fantastic job they've made of it. So it was just a big thanks publicly to everybody that's pulled their weight together to get those on site, and so we've got a whole school back in one site, and just thanks to Liswerry High School for their acceptance of our Year 6 last term, but it's lovely to have them all back on one site. Thank you very much.
Absolutely, and I echo your comments, Deputy Leader. Councillor Rahman, would you like to come in?
Yes, thank you, Leader. I just want to do sort of a follow on from Councillor Davis and Councillor Cochrane about their comments. I can speak locally when I talk about Maindy Primary School, how fortunate we were to, as a governor as well there, how fortunate we were to receive funding to do up the toilets. It's our commitment to education and schools, again, showing always through our work as a cabinet, as a authority. The other point I want to raise is it's been a year of no other, obviously, as we all know. We're just emerging out of this pandemic, but we've got a plan going forward as an authority, as a Labour group, not to get too political, but we have a COVID green recovery in place. We're already committed to improving our city centre. You would have, well, you were there actually, Leader, I do apologise. You were there with Vaughan Geffin at the largest market refurbishment in the UK. Who would have thought? In the whole of the UK, it's the largest market refurbishment. Also, we're committed to reducing carbon emissions through our active travel funding as well, and it's making great strides. And as Councillor Cochrane said, there's a new leisure centre. The planning application has been submitted. There's some great mock-ups of what it would look like. Our city centre is going to look amazing. Our riverfront is going to look amazing. We're using our community's money, our taxpayers' money, wisely to make sure that we recover from the pandemic, but also we're leading the way in the UK with these regeneration projects, not just the big one, not just the leisure centre, not just the market refurbishment, but also locally working with community groups as well. Again, speaking from local sort of knowledge, Mainly Unlimited are regenerating the public toilets to bring it back in use and also open up a cafe for our residents there. They've done great work with Mainly Library as well, and that's in cooperation with Newport City Council and its local councillors. So it just shows that this authority is willing to work with anyone who has an interest in seeing our city recover. So I just want to raise those points, Leader. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that, Councillor Rahman, and thank you so much for really highlighting some of the excellent work that is going on. It truly is outstanding when you consider that within the context of our officers also having to continue not just to respond to the pandemic, but maintain essential service provision as well. So thank you so much for that. I'm just going to invite Councillor Mayor and then Councillor Harvey. Councillor Mayor.
Thank you, Leader. I'd just like to say a little thing about what is really not the big ones that we just talked about, the fantastic ones that is going to be right in our face, but so much that goes on behind the scenes in order to make all this possible. And there's a number of things on the people and business change on page 55. Which are important. I apologise firstly that we've used an abbreviation. We normally don't like using abbreviations, but it says SMPF. If I told you it was Shared Metallic Path Facility, I don't think it would help much more if it was in full, so we may as well call it that. But I'd just like to say, we go on about this every meeting, don't we, of just how far we've accelerated into the future since the pandemic, because we've been forced to communicate in different ways, and this has opened up so many doors for us in other areas. For instance, in the telecommunications, I mean, we've got thousands and thousands of telephones, and I mean they just seem very antiquated now, and of course they are all over the building, and they use an old-fashioned technology to communicate, a modernized version of the old-fashioned technology. But now we've got so much opportunity to digitize the services, to coordinate the services, to get them being more efficient and centralized, so that we can keep an eye on it. There's some just wonderful stuff going on in that one, the telecare systems, disabled grants, home care systems, etc. And even the contact centre itself, it looks like we'll be changing the system there to make it even more efficient than it is. I'm very proud of the contact centre. As you know, it was my idea back in 1995, I think, that we should make it easier for the public and for members to be able to find out what they want. And that goes from strength to strength. So thank you, Leader.
Thanks very much for that, Councillor Mayor, and I think you've highlighted a really important aspect of our work, and that is the investment in order to enable the service provision to run effectively as well. So thank you for that. Councillor Harvey.
Thank you, Leader. Not to keep reiterating what everyone has already said, but we have come through an awful time with COVID. but we've still managed to deliver our services. Our teams are phenomenal. We thank them at every cabinet meeting. I know we do, and I suppose people think, here she goes again. But taking into account that we have been through the worst time in our generation, but we still managed to deliver, and it's delivered in big projects, it's delivered in small projects. We're still caring for our residents, we're caring for the children of Newport. We're doing everything and then some, even through COVID times, because COVID hasn't gone away. People think, oh, there's no more lockdowns, it's all over. No, it's not. It's still here, the numbers are still going up. I'm just very, very proud of Newport Council, our teams, and I don't very often say it, but I'm very proud of this cabinet leader and deputy, given that no matter what's been thrown at us, and we've had plenty thrown at us, we still just brushed it off and cracked on, because that's what we are about, cracking on. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you very, very much for that, Councillor Harvey. So, colleagues, we're asked to, the report asks us to approve the additions and amendments to the capital programme, to approve reprofiling, to note the update on the remaining capital resources, and to note the expenditure forecast. Are members content to do that?
Happy with that, Lydia.
Okay, thank you very much for that. We move now then to item number 6 on the agenda, and this is the quarter 2021-22 update on this, and you can find this on pages 63 to 114 of your packs. So this is an update on our corporate risk register for the end of quarter 1, so that's the 1st of April to the 30th of June this year. Members are asked to consider the contents of the report and note the changes to the Council's corporate risks. Now, the Council's risk management policy and corporate risk register enables this administration and officers to effectively identify, manage and monitor those risks which could prevent us from achieving our objectives in the corporate plan and to undertake our statutory duties as a local authority. The quarter 1 risk report will also be presented to the Council's Governance and Audit Committee on the 30th of September to review the Council's risk management process and governance arrangements. At the end of quarter 1, the Council had 46 risks recorded across our 8 service areas. Those risks that are deemed to pose the most significant risk in the delivery of the Council's corporate plan and services are escalated to the Council's corporate risk register for monitoring. At the end of quarter 1, 18 risks were recorded in the corporate risk register. 11 of those were severe risks, 4 were major, 2 moderate and 1 low risk. In quarter 1, the corporate risk register has also seen 1 risk score decrease, with the remaining 17 risks remaining at the same score. In terms of the COVID-19 pandemic outbreak, we've seen a decrease in the risk score there, so that's decreased from 20 to 15. And this is due to the successful rollout of the vaccination programme and the easing of lockdown restrictions, which has made it possible to reopen services face-to-face. This risk score is a reflection of the COVID risk in quarter 1, and since this period, Newport and Wales have seen an increase in the infection rate, and we'll be taking this into consideration as part of our quarter 2 update. Frontline council services continue to operate normally, and council staff, where they can, are still being advised to work from home. So Cabinet, the report asks us to agree the contents of the quarter 4 risk report and continue to monitor progressive actions taken to reduce the impact of risk. Now at this stage, I'll just open this up to colleagues to see if there are any questions or comments. Councillor Mayor, would you like to come in?
forget everything I said before about moving towards technology and relying on the speed and efficiency of services, because there's obviously the other side of that coin is that we are always under threat of cyber attacks. We've been, I guess, I wouldn't say that we've been lucky. I think that we have robust systems, and it's our staff continuously check on this, and but I don't know whether anyone is immune from this. You've seen massive multinational companies fall prey to cyber attacks, so it's always going to be a risk, unfortunately. But we do everything we can to ensure the security and the backup of data, so that we do not end up with having no services at all, like some authorities have, unfortunately. So I just thought I'd mention that, Leader. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that, Councillor Mayor. And I think that actually gives us great assurance to know that that is being monitored so closely. Are there any other comments from Cabinet colleagues? No? Okay then. So are members content to agree the contents of the Q4 risk report and continue to monitor progress of the actions taken to reduce the impact of those risks? Yeah?
Yes, happy with that.
Okay, thank you very much for that. We move on then to item number 7 on our agenda today, which is the Corporate Safeguarding Annual Report for 2020-21. And this is on pages 115 to 168 of your packs. Now, the annual safeguarding report provides assurance to the Council that all departments across the Council have clear standards in place to address safeguarding. The introduction of the safeguarding self-assessment audit in 2020 was completed by all departments and evidenced an understanding of safeguarding involving us all, with regard to policy and practice, environment and the culture of the Council. The safeguarding team will continue to work with each department across the Council to further develop key actions identified in the audit. Throughout the difficult year of the pandemic and its impact on service delivery and on the workforce, Cabinet are assured that the immediate safeguarding practice for children and adults continue to be delivered across all social services statutory functions. Face-to-face assessments with families and citizens for immediate safeguarding practice was delivered using PPE where required and adherence to all restrictions. The pressure on frontline services required resourceful management to ensure that we continue to protect and safeguard our most vulnerable citizens and ensure early intervention was available to prevent escalation within families and communities. The Council recognised the impact of the pandemic on the workforce resources and the continued pressure within the frontline services to deliver safe and accessible services. It's therefore crucial that the whole Council is an informed workforce that recognise safeguarding issues in the community and act accordingly. The assurance evidence within the safeguarding audit provide a baseline for the Council on how it discharges its safeguarding involves us all commitment across the Council. This would therefore reduce the level of risk for the Council, but it is proposed not to reduce the level of risk on the risk register currently due to the impacts of the pandemic on the workforce and the possible impacts across Council services. Now, the Council continues to prepare for a change in legislation and practice from deprivation of liberty safeguards to liberty protection safeguards, which will now occur in 2022. As part of the ongoing identified training strategy, both in-house and as part of the wider regional consortium, more training on the new legislation and practice to increase knowledge and skill will be ongoing and is clearly identified within the annual corporate work plan and in the specific adult and children's services priority plans regarding training on new regulations and legislation. We're also, and I'm really pleased to see this, ensuring that we are skill scanning, and this is safeguarding training appropriate for every role within the council, as a member, as an employee, or as a volunteer. Every post will be reviewed by safeguarding and the training department to ensure that the correct level of safeguarding training and checks required for that role is assigned, and will be reviewed by the responsible line manager at correct intervals. And this also features in the work plan. Now, as highlighted to members, there is an area of risk to the council in relation to the performance for mandatory training, where fines and regulatory action may be taken regarding safeguarding training, in particular the violence against women, domestic abuse and sexual violence. Although there have been some mitigating factors affecting performance during 2020-21. So it's really important to note that in relation to this, performance and compliance will continue to be formally addressed across the council. So it's therefore a recommendation to us colleagues that we endorse the corporate safeguarding work plan with specific reference to people and business change to continue to adopt new ways of working into their priority planning for both new starters and current employees, including volunteers. The Welsh Government mandatory training is the violence against women, domestic abuse and sexual violence, which requires the Council's completion of the national framework for training for all Council officers, members and volunteers. And improvement and completion of these mandatory courses will ensure fines or regulatory action are not taken by governing bodies against Newport City Council. At this point, colleagues, I'd really like to pause, because actually I think it's really important to highlight the excellent work that's going on across the authority in relation to this, and I think it's really important to thank Mary Ryan particularly publicly for the work that she's done on this in terms of moving us forward with this. And at this stage, colleagues, I'll invite comments. Would anybody like to come in and comment on this report? Councillor Cochrane.
Yes, thank you, Leader. I want to endorse everything that you said, and I think you presented the safeguarding report excellent as always. And I just like to echo your comments about what Mary has put together, and the stewardship that she's led on this, to be perfectly honest. And when you think about the 3 inspections that we've had, they've highlighted good practice throughout the safeguarding hub. And when you think of what we've got in the safeguarding hub, we've got 2 police, I think, now in there, and health. And I think when you think of a partnership working that way, we are working really extremely well with our partners. I think the only thing I want to mention, or clearly we've mentioned the COVID on many occasions this evening, and the numbers that are being referred into the safeguarding hub now has really gone through the roof. And I think we need to be all aware of all that. Even schools now are seeing, and I think Councillor Mayers would support this. I think in one of the schools that we're governors, they've even engaged a mine counsellor now to try and help support some of the children that are going through that process. So really, I just want to echo everything that you said, and thank the safeguarding teams. But the last point I want to make, it's not just about this council, it's not just about members, it's and officers and staff. It's about the public out there as well. We've all got a duty. If we see something that's going wrong, we've got a duty to report it. We just can't turn our back and say it's nothing to do with me. It's all our responsibility. If we're seeing abuse, whether it's physical, sexual or financial, we've got a duty, in my opinion, to report it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cochrane. And I don't think that anything so important has been said so far today. It really is incumbent on all of us, isn't it, as you say, to ensure that if we do have any concerns that we do report them. Councillor Rahman, would you like to come in there?
Yes, thank you, Leader. I want to echo Councillor Cochrane there. There is a duty on all of us to make sure our neighbours, our community stay safe. But as a school governor as well, I just want to express how grateful I am of this authority's commitment to safeguarding, providing ongoing training, and it's not just a tick box exercise, but we're fully committed to the principles of safeguarding. I also want to highlight comments from the Scrutiny Committee on page 122 of the agenda. I'm just going to quote and read it verbatim. The committee thanked the safeguarding team for their huge efforts over the last 18 months, which must have been incredibly tough. The work behind the scenes and honest appraisals were fully appreciated. Members queried whether the team had any recommendation to Cabinet that might be helpful to them for the future issues. I want to reassure the safeguarding team that this Cabinet is willing to listen to them and do all that we can to ensure that they have the resources that they need. So I want to just highlight that point, that it's not just us looking at this as a Cabinet, but other councillors as well are looking at this, and they thank our safeguarding team for all the work that they've done, rightly so as well. But I wanted to just let that team know we're listening to them, we're here for them, and we're willing to support them because we're all in this together to make sure our communities are safe. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you very much for that, Councillor Rahman. We fully support those comments. Would anybody else like to comment on this report? In which case, colleagues, are you content to move the report and accept its recommendations?
So moved.
Thank you very much for that. The next item on our agenda today is item number 8, which is our COVID response and recovery update. And colleagues, the information on this is available in pages 169 to 182 of our packs. And this, as you know, colleagues, is our regular update on the Council's and our partners' responses to the COVID-19 crisis, supporting the City, both residents and businesses, to comply with current restrictions and progress, and also highlights progress in our Council's strategic recovery aims and corporate plan. So since our last Cabinet meeting in July, we're all aware, I think, at this stage that the Delta variant is the most dominant strain across Wales and the UK. Now, case rates for Newport and other areas in Wales remain high as restrictions have been eased, allowing people to socialise more and undertake more normal routines. But we must remember that it remains important for people to continue to adhere to the Welsh Government guidelines, wearing face coverings, maintaining social distancing where possible, and being aware of people, whether that is friends or family, that there are still vulnerable people who are susceptible to the virus. Our hospitals are continuing to see people treated for COVID, and as the summer break ends, people return back to work, schools and universities. The next few months will remain precarious as we see what impact this will have. As the Welsh Government has already stated, restrictions could be reimposed if the case rate, hospitalisations increase or new variants emerge. The vaccination programme has continued to be really successful in Newport and across Wales. The last month has been focused on young people and those who've yet to receive their vaccine. And this Cabinet cannot stress enough the importance for all people eligible to have the vaccine. Please, please, if you are eligible, please do so. Not only does this protect you, but it also protects the others around you. Now, many services continue to deliver, as we've already mentioned here today, to our residents and communities across Newport. And a significant proportion of council staff continue to deliver face-to-face services. The council, both staff and members, will continue to work from home where they can. Risk assessments are being undertaken in compliance with the Welsh Government guidelines to ensure that building staff and the public can work safely. Over the next few weeks, work will continue to develop and deliver a new normal business model, and further updates will be provided at our next meeting. Throughout the summer break, Our community teams, schools, education and Newport Live have been supporting young people and their families, providing various programmes of activity and supermarket vouchers for free school meal pupils. It's been really encouraging to see businesses in the hospitality sector return, including the Riverfront Theatre. How lovely is it to see the entertainment on offer again at our Riverfront Theatre? And how fantastic have those Friday evening sessions been with the live music? It's wonderful to see the city centre being revived in this way. We continue to offer business grants to businesses to help them recover, and we really encourage businesses to take up this offer. Many council services have returned to normal operations, offering face-to-face services in line with Welsh Government guidance, of course. And I really need to emphasise that we've also allocated £500,000 over the next 2 years to support community groups and projects, and we'll be announcing further details of those very shortly. At this point, colleagues, I think I'll just pause and invite comments. So would anybody like to comment on this particular report? Councillor Harvey.
Thanks, Leader. I'm really glad, and I fully concur with everything you've just said about the COVID cases and people still protecting each other. People need to understand, just because you've had this vaccine, it doesn't mean that you're not going to catch COVID. And we do still need to take a real concerted effort to make sure that we're not passing anything on. You can still pick it up if you do follow all the guidelines. It's just been released from Public Health Wales that the Mu, if I'm pronouncing that right, or Mu variant has been detected in Wales. So that's even more reason that we need to be completely focused, keep wearing your masks, keep doing what the restrictions allow you to do, and keep each other safe. Thanks, Leader.
Thank you very much for that, Councillor Harvey. Are there any further comments from colleagues in relation to this item? No? Okay, well, thank you for your consideration of this item, and as Councillor Harvey said, it is really, really important that we continue to follow Welsh Government guidance and really encourage everybody to be really, really careful as we move forward. And we will have further updates on our progress in relation to this in our next Cabinet meeting. So we move then to the next item on our agenda today, which is item number 9, and this is the Brexit update report, and this is on pages 183 to 188 of your packs. And colleagues, what can I say? So this Cabinet report is an update on the post-Brexit trade arrangements, and since our previous report in July, it's been 2 months since the deadline for EU citizens to apply for EU settled status. The UK government, the Home Office, has reported that over 98,000 applications have been received from EU EEA citizens living in Wales. UK government statistics indicate that a significant majority of applications have outcomes that either resulted in full settled status or pre-settled status being granted. However, there remains many people that have either not received an outcome of their application or have been unsuccessful in being granted their status. It's not clear how many people in Newport have missed the application deadline or have failed to secure their status. We do expect to see an increase in the number of people and families presenting as needing support, as they will no longer have access to public funds. This will be in addition to the people and families that the Council will be supporting as part of the Home Office Asylum Seeker and Refugee programmes. The Council services will be continuing to support those affected and ensuring that they have access to the services and support that they need. Since the UK left the single market in December 2020, some sectors in the economy have seen significant impacts in the supply and demand of commodities, alongside increases in the prices of goods and services. This has also been impacted by the COVID crisis as the economy recovers from the COVID pandemic. Many businesses in Wales have reported issues with labour supply, such as HGV drivers, construction and farming labourers. Our finance, service areas and project teams are all closely monitoring these issues and assessing their impacts on the delivery and cost to the council. And these will be reported in our finance updates, and colleagues, you will be aware that I've already highlighted that in my report to you today. Now, with prices also set to increase in the autumn, it is likely that many households will be impacted by these changes, making it difficult for low-income households. And it's really important that we continue to support these households. We've got a range of services on offer that can help them, and we would urge anybody in that experiencing those difficulties, please contact the council or other organisations such as Citizens Advice, who can provide advice and support to you. And I think before I open for questions, there is a point that I'd like to pick up on in relation to this particular issue. And I mentioned in my overview there the support that we already provide to asylum seekers and refugees. And I really want to emphasise at this point, as I've emphasised throughout when we've discussed the Brexit and the issues around settled status, Newport is a city of sanctuary. We welcome and embrace those people from other nations who choose to join us and choose to stay here and make a real contribution to our communities, our economy and our society. And I'd just like to repeat that again. Newport is a city of sanctuary. So in relation to that, just for your awareness, colleagues, I'd just like to also highlight that we've been taking part in the scheme to accommodate and support vulnerable people and interpreters from Afghanistan for the past 5 years, and we have welcomed citizens here to join us in Newport. We've previously committed to taking further families from Afghanistan, but given the current crisis, and nobody can escape this, we see this all around us every day, we have confirmed with the Home Office, Ministry of Defence and Department for Housing, Communities and Local Government that we will do all that we can to provide additional accommodation. We're working with private landlords to do so, and our first family under this scheme arrived in Newport last week. Now, people who come to Newport through these designated schemes will be well provisioned. However, I am very conscious that a number of colleagues have asked about donations or the provision of support, and we do have information available on our website for all of those citizens of Newport who would really like to somehow contribute to the support in some way or another. And there's a lot of information on there available for those people wishing to make donations or provide support. And I think it's really important, again, just finally, before I invite colleagues to comment, that we are a city of sanctuary and people are welcome here. So, Deputy Leader, would you like to come in?
Yes, thank you, Leader, and I echo everything that you've just said. I'd like to pick up on perhaps one thing that you mentioned about in regards to businesses in Wales and HGV drivers, and we are not immune from that either with a driver shortage, and many councils in Wales are already feeling the pinch of that shortage of drivers. And there are many lucrative deals offered to some of these drivers to move to other employment where they can earn substantial amounts of money. But again, with those HGV drivers and the commitment to that, it's not just as simple as just taking one test and here we go. Everybody knows from a driving test point of view what HGV drivers go through and the issues that are being faced with the ongoing issues at DVLA in Swansea. And the certificate of professional competence that a HGV driver has to have, and the many hours of classroom training before they can do that. So we are not immune from that, and as councils we offer hundreds and hundreds of services which include drivers, and it really is a logistical nightmare, you know, just putting together routes and and collection routes for our waste savers drivers, for our refuse drivers and garden waste drivers. So just a big thanks to all the people that are involved with all that work that goes on before you see those people on the streets in the morning, and that coupled with the COVID issue and the rise in cases, and again, and props to the shielding that some of these people may have to do, does cause us problems. But at the moment, we haven't failed in our collections in any of our services yet. Some of them have been delayed, yes, obviously, and that communication has been well presented to residents. But a big thanks to all the members of the team that put all that together for our continuation of these services. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that, Deputy Leader, and you just really highlight there how this impacts on us all. So thank you very much for that. Councillor Harvey.
Thank you, Leader. I'm really glad and I fully support everything you've said. From a parent of a serving soldier, for us not to accept the Afghani interpreters would be absolutely disgraceful beyond words. Those people put themselves in the firing line. They are at risk of being killed because they helped us. Now it's time for us to help them, because without those interpreters, we'd have lost a lot more soldiers. And a friend of my son, he wouldn't be here anymore without them. So as far as I'm concerned, yes, you're damn right. This city is open and it's welcoming, and they're more than welcome to come and live here. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you for that, Councillor Harvey, and I really thank you for that very moving commentary, and I am very moved by it, and I echo your comments there. Absolutely, these people very much welcome to join us here in Newport. Councillor Rahman, would you like to come in?
Yes, thank you, Leader. I echo your sentiments as well as a city of sanctuary for those most vulnerable, and we need to do the right thing. We need to not just support these vulnerable people who've worked with our armed forces, but also we need to support their families and our communities to work together to make our city more prosperous. It's great that the Home Office are funding those few families, but I would raise the point, Leader, that I find it hard to believe this government at the moment, considering what we're going through Brexit, and now recently you hear on the news about the national insurance tax rise and then the cut in the universal credit. So that's my only concern, that there'll be plenty of more people in need of our help, but our community are there for them. We've seen that as local councillors, how much they come forward to donate and support, and as authority we're there with them as well.
Thank you very much for that, Councillor Rahman. And you know, as you say, while the UK government continues to penalise the poor and the most vulnerable, it is so refreshing to see the warm welcome and the support that people across our communities here in Newport do provide for each other. So thank you very much for that. So would anybody else like to come in and comment on that particular item? Okay, so we move then to the next item on our agenda, which is for noting, and that is the Psb Summary of Business. So you see, colleagues, in the agenda that you've got there is a link to the summary of the Public Service Board. Item number 11 is our work programme, our Cabinet work programme. This is on pages 189 to 196 of our packs, and this is our regular monthly update on our work programme. The members content with this and happy to accept it.
Yes, accept that, Leader. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much for that, colleagues. And our next meeting is on the 13th of October, so I look forward to welcoming you to Cabinet then, and thank you all for your contributions today. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Leader. Bye all.
Bye-bye. Bye.
Bye all.
Bye bye. Thank you.
Bye.